Have you ever wondered if you're talented enough to become a successful professional artist? In this video, I'm going to help you answer that question, and I'm going to provide several viable options for how you can actually accomplish that, while at the same time, I'm going to complete this painting from start to finish. I'm also going to reveal the dirty little secret that most art colleges and universities don't want you to know. And if you dream of making a life from the sale of your art, understanding this can save you from wasting tens of thousands of dollars and years of your life. Now, I originally shot this video in vertical format for TikTok, but I think this is the best half hour of content I've ever produced, so I decided it was worth the effort to translate it to the horizontal format for YouTube. If you dream of a life as a successful artist, I really encourage you to watch this entire video. It might just change your life. Trying to make a living as an artist can be tough. Dealing with the uncertainty of whether your work will ever sell consistently. Feeling that your art just doesn't stand out compared to other successful artists. And being overwhelmed by the skills and knowledge needed to succeed as both a business person and an artist. Then there's the fear that due to the financial instability, making a living as a full-time artist is just never going to be a viable option. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if there was a proven step-by-step system that would lead to consistent, noticeable improvements in your art? Creating a clear roadmap to fast-track your success while developing your own unique artistic voice and ultimately allowing you to earn a decent, reliable income from the sale of your art. Wouldn't that be amazing? Could you imagine going into your studio every day, pursuing your passion, confident that every painting that you create will find a buyer and never again having to worry about paying the bills? Well, that's been my life for the past 20 years, and it could be your life too. I'm Tim Packer, and for the past 20 years, I've had a very successful career as an artist, but it did not start out that way. At 21 years of age, I gave up on the dream of making a living as an artist, and I joined the Toronto Police Service. And that's because I'd come to the realization that I just wasn't talented enough to make a living as an artist. And I was absolutely right. I wasn't talented enough to make a living as an artist yet. At that time, I thought talent was something you were born with. You either had it or you didn't have it. And not only did I not have it, I was pretty sure I was never going to get it. And then, when I was in my 30s, I was exposed for the first time to the idea of the growth mindset. And this is the concept that talent is not some gift that's magically bestowed upon certain individuals. It's simply the sum total of your current skills, knowledge, experience, and creativity, and that all of these things could be improved upon. Talent actually came as a result of hard work, and if you were willing to put the work in, your ultimate talent was virtually limitless. So I decided to put this theory to the test, and the results were astounding. Within a couple of years, I'd been elected to a couple juried national arts organizations. My work had been accepted in numerous juried shows. I'd won awards, and I was actually selling my paintings regularly. And in 2000, at the age of 39, my wife and I made the decision that I was going to quit my job as a police officer and give it a try to make a living as a full-time artist. And to this day, that's still the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. And it was not all rainbows and ice cream at the beginning. For the first 5 years, it was a real struggle. Because while I had a pretty well-developed skill set, I had no idea how to actually go about making a good living from my art. Now, luckily, I was able to make friends with a few successful artists who actually mentored me unofficially. And during this time, I was also studying the careers of successful artists, trying to find the commonalities between those who actually were able to succeed compared to those who were starving. Now, I was eventually able to figure things out, and for the past 20 years, I've made in the multiple six figures from the sale of my art in each and every year. Now, I'd often thought that if I'd known at the beginning all the stuff I knew now, I probably could have achieved success much more quickly. Well, a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to put this theory to the test. If you follow art at all on social media, I'm sure you've heard of Brooke Cormier. She's a very successful young artist. Her work can be found in collections around the world, and she has over 500,000 followers on social media. Now, when I first met Brooke, she was in university studying to be a landscape architect. Her dad was one of my golf buddies, and that's how we initially came to get to know each other. Now, at that time, painting was just a hobby for Brooke, although a pretty serious one. And every time I saw her, she would pick my brains about, what it was like to be an artist and how I ended up actually becoming a successful artist. And shortly after Brooke graduated from university, I was golfing with her dad, and he told me that Brooke had had a conversation with them the previous night and let them know that she did not want to be a landscape architect. What she really wanted to be was an artist. And a couple things were pretty obvious during this conversation. One, that her dad was not happy and thought she was potentially throwing her life away. And two, that he blamed me for this incredibly irresponsible decision she was making. And he also asked me what I thought her chances of success were and if I had any advice for him. And so I told Paul that it was pretty obvious to me that she had the three most important things that it required to become a successful artist. She had a passion for art, she had a solid work ethic, and she had the willingness and ability to learn. And I pointed out to him, she could try this for a year, and if it didn't work out, she could go back to being a landscape architect, but she was still living at home with her parents. She didn't have any obligations or debt to worry about. And she might never have another chance, with no risk to just give it a shot. And then I also told him that if she was interested, I'd actually be willing to mentor her for that first year. So Brooke and I had a meeting, and we agreed that we would get together every month or so. We would track her progress, and then I would give her advice on what I thought she should be doing next. And Brooke also agreed that we could film all of these sessions, and I would post them on my YouTube channel so that other artists could learn from her experience as well. Well, thank God we did that. Her success was so dramatic and so fast that if we didn't have her entire journey recorded, you probably wouldn't believe it. In her first year, Brooke was able to earn over $30,000 from the sale of her art, and within a couple years, she could barely keep up with the demand for her work, which was often selling for more than the price of my work. And you can still see Brooke's entire journey on my YouTube channel in the mentorship series. One of the questions that came up when I first started mentoring Brooke was whether or not it would be worthwhile for her to think about going back to school and getting a degree in fine art. So I told her I would do some research on that, and what I found literally blew my mind. And it's the dirty little secret that most colleges and universities don't want you to know. So there was a recent study as reported by Noah Berlatsky in the Atlantic magazine that tried to determine the relationship between actually getting a degree in fine art and actually going on to have a successful career as an artist. And what that study found was that if you had a degree in fine art, you were 3 times less likely to ever make a living from your art than someone with just a high school education and no university education whatsoever. So just think about that. If you dream of a life as an artist, just not taking any formal education is going to hugely improve your chances of being successful compared to going to university. Again, while that just blows my mind on so many levels, I think it's a shameful indictment on the current state of art education at most post-secondary institutions. But when you think about it, the results actually make sense. Because what this study found was that the majority of universities and colleges had gone totally away from the classic principles that have been valued in art since the Enlightenment. And they're really focusing on the whole idea of postmodernism, where it's more about how the artist feels, more about the meaning behind the art, and very little at all about teaching the techniques, knowledge, concepts that are required to actually create work that someone might want to buy. Now, in addition to this, most students graduate with crippling debt. The thing that actually I find the most disgusting about this whole situation is that there is literally no other discipline you can take in school that is less likely to help you on your goal of making a living in it than a fine art degree. And yet these degrees are some of the most expensive that are out there. You can spend in excess of $100,000 to get a degree in fine art. And that means that most graduates of art colleges and universities need to get a job right away to start paying off that crippling debt. And at that point, they need any job just so they can start making money. That leaves virtually no time to focus on their art. And many, if not most of these students end up working away the rest of their lives in insurance companies or for the banks, but doing anything other than something related to art. So yeah, we pretty quickly came to the realization that no, it would not be helpful for Brooke to go back to university to get a degree in fine art. And I think she really dodged a bullet there because, as I said, at the end of her first year, she'd already made over $30,000 from the sale of her art. If she'd gone back to school, she likely would have been $30,000 in debt, with still not having made any sales of her art, but also not having really learned any of the things that have led to her success. So if you dream of a life as an artist, no, I would not recommend getting a degree in fine art. I guess there is one caveat there. There are still some fine art institutions that teach the traditional atelier methods that have been valued by the art establishment since the Enlightenment. And if you have the wherewithal to attend one of these universities and you're not going to go in a huge amount of debt, if your parents are going to pay for it, then that actually could help you. But for the most part, most university and college art programs are going to do nothing to actually prepare you to earn a living from the sale of your art. So what's the answer? Well, if you stick around till the end, I'll give you what I think are a few really good viable options. But before we get to that, let me go on with my story and we can answer the question of whether or not you have what it takes to become a successful artist. So I continued mentoring Brooke for 2 years. And at the end of that 2-year period, she ended up actually moving to Vienna, relocating there. And of course, her career, she's never looked back. And the rest is history. After Brooke moved away, I couldn't help but thinking about the impact I'd been able to have on her life and wondering if I could have the same sort of impact on other aspiring artists, but not just one artist at a time, but at scale. And it was at this time that fate kind of stepped in and threw a wrench into the machine. So totally out of left field, I ended up developing some very serious issues with my thyroid and ended up experiencing the year of the thyroid from hell, where I actually almost died twice. There were 2 separate occasions that year when I was lying on the gurney, looking at my wife and realizing I might not be here in the next few minutes. And as I'm sure you've all heard, that kind of thing really makes you step back and examine your life. The one thing I was happy to discover is that while I was lying there and contemplating my imminent demise, the number one feeling I had was gratitude. I had just been so grateful for the life I'd been given. And I thought, I'm not ready to go yet. But if this is it, wow, it's been a heck of a ride. And I'd achieved pretty much all of the dreams that I had about what I wanted to accomplish as an artist. But there was one tiny little regret. And I thought, well, I wish I had been able to do more to share my knowledge and experience with other artists, like I've been able to do with Brooke, and help them achieve their dreams. So as I was sitting there for the second time in a couple months, contemplating my imminent demise, I had a bit of an epiphany. And I realized that if I recovered, I didn't want to just spend the rest of my life cranking out more paintings and making lots more money. I really wanted to focus on trying to share everything I'd learned with other aspiring artists so that I could have the same kind of impact at scale that I'd had with Brooke in the one-on-one situation. And in 2020, I launched the Tim Packer Art Academy online. And the big question was, could I have the same sort of impact with an online course that I'd been able to achieve with Brooke when dealing with her just simply one-on-one? Well, the results are in, and the answer to that question is a resounding yes. I'd like you to meet Emily Valentine. Emily was actually one of the very first students to sign up for my online art academy. And while growing up, she'd actually followed Brooke's journey online. She was actually attending the same university that Brooke went to, but she was studying to be a veterinarian. But what she really wanted to do was to become an artist, but she just didn't really think she was talented enough. So becoming a vet was her plan B. And after seeing another one of my YouTube videos where I kind of said the same thing I'm saying here, which is that if you really want to do it, it's possible. You just need to have the passion for art, a willingness to learn, and a solid work ethic. She decided to take the plunge. So she was one of the very first ones to sign up for my new art academy. And Emily's results are actually probably even a little more shocking than Brooke's. And when Emily joined my art academy, COVID was kind of in full force and the world was pretty much shut down. And she decided to quit the veterinary program at university and to focus 100% on her art. So she signed up for my academy, she went through the courses, and she really spent that first kind of year and a half just focusing on developing her art, improving her skills, her knowledge, and pushing her creativity, just getting more experience painting. When the world finally started to open up a little bit, she did her very first art festival. And that was the Toronto Artist Project, which is actually probably one of the biggest festivals in Toronto every year. Emily's results were amazing. She actually experienced a complete sellout before the show was over. And then despite raising her prices, she experienced a complete sellout in the next 2 shows that she did. Now, Emily's prices more than quadrupled over the course of that first year, and she still had trouble keeping up with the demand. Now Emily's at the point that she no longer does art festivals because she can just barely keep up with the sales that occur through her website and through social media. She's also been elected as a member of several very distinguished arts organizations in Canada. She's won a number of prestigious awards. And just a couple months ago, she was an invited guest at the Mayor of Toronto's Evening for the Arts Gala. And it doesn't stop there. Here's another of my students, Emma Hainstock. Now, when Emma first joined my art academy, she was in university studying towards getting her PhD in biotech, but she really wanted to be, you guessed it, an artist. What makes Emma's story even more impressive is that she was continuing her studies and continuing to work in biotech and was only applying herself part-time towards her art. Yet she was still able to achieve $24,000 in sales in her very first summer of exhibiting her work. Now, there's a common denominator with all of these stories, including my own, which is that there was a point for each of us where we honestly believed we just weren't talented enough to make it as an artist. And we were all right when we made that assessment. But by improving our skills, our knowledge, gaining more experience, and pushing our creativity, we were able to achieve talent at a level that would allow us to succeed. So in answer to the question I posed at the beginning of this video, are you talented enough to actually become a successful artist? Right now, probably the answer is no. But more importantly, could you become talented enough to have an extremely successful career as an artist? Absolutely. But there are 4 things that you're going to need in order for that to happen. Now, the first 3 are totally on you and within your control, but the last one is more of an external thing where you're going to need the help of someone else to guide you. So you're going to need a passion for art, you're going to need a solid work ethic, and you need to have the ability and a willingness to learn. Now, by passion for art, I don't just mean you love painting and love pushing paint around. I love golfing. I still pretty much suck at it. That's because it's not really a true passion. When I say passion, I mean not only do you love doing it, but you have an overwhelming, burning desire to master everything about it, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to achieve that mastery. If you have those 3 things, that's at least a start on the road to becoming a successful artist. But it's still no guarantee. There are a ton of artists out there with those 3 attributes who are either starving or have given up on the dream of being an artist. Now, to understand this 4th piece of the puzzle and to really get why it's so vital, we need to look at the difference between the success of Brooke, Emily, and Emma and my success, and then also the difference between that and the majority of artists who are actually struggling to make any sales at all. And the major difference is that Brooke, Emma, and Emily were able to achieve $30,000 in earnings in their very first year pursuing art, while it took me 5 years to hit those kind of numbers. And when I quit my job on the police force to pursue my art career, I actually had a big head start on those girls. I had a much higher skill set. I mean, and that's not just my ego speaking. Hopefully I would have been much further ahead. I had attended a special art high school where half of my subjects were art. I then studied graphic design for 2 years in college, and I'd already very seriously pursued a part-time career as an artist for several years. I'd also achieved a number of professional accomplishments. I'd been elected as a member to the Canadian Society of Painters in Watercolor. I'd been elected as a senior signature member in the Canadian Institute of Portrait Artists. I'd had my work exhibited in a number of international juried shows. I'd already won a number of awards, and I'd already sold probably over 100 paintings. Yet they were able to achieve in 1 year what took me 5. And why is that? Well, when I left the police force, I actually had no idea how to go about making a living from my art. So I made a lot of mistakes. I spent a lot of time focusing on things that were totally unproductive while neglecting things that were essential. I wasted a lot of time. Now, my strategy when I first started mentoring Brooke was fairly simple. It was to identify the one thing that if she could master it would have the biggest positive impact on both her art and her career. And then we just focused on what were the things she could do to achieve that. And then once she had achieved that, what was the next logical step? Now, initially, the focus was almost exclusively on her art, mastering various skills, various concepts, pushing her creativity, until she was consistently creating high quality work. Then we focused on getting her work exposure, eventually offering her work for sale, and then scaling her career. That meant that during this entire process, Brooke was able to apply laser-like focus to the one thing that was going to have the biggest impact in her career. And it was doing that that allowed her to really fast forward the process. And when I created my courses in my art academy, that was a key part of what I wanted to include. And the one thing that I really discovered during this whole process is that not only are there a number of things that you really need to master if you want to be successful, but if you master them in the correct order, it will really fast forward the process. And when I look at why so many artists are struggling, It's because they're focusing on the wrong things in the wrong order, and sometimes totally neglecting certain things that are absolutely essential to success. Okay, so assuming you've got the passion for art, you've got a willingness and ability to learn, you've got a solid work ethic, and you've decided you really want more than anything to have a career as an artist, what would I suggest as the path for you? So there's basically two stages that you need to focus on. The first is the development of your art, developing the skills, concepts, techniques, gaining the experience so that you can consistently create great art. And by great art in the world of commercial sales, that is art that consistently gets the, oh my God, I love it, I have to have it reaction from at least enough of the public to earn you a decent living. And the way I see it, there are basically three ways that you can achieve this. And it depends on how much money you have, how much time you have, whether or not you have the ability to travel, and a number of other factors, and just what fits best into your life. So let's look at the first one. This one might actually surprise you. For some of you, the best path actually might be going to study art in university or college. And you're probably shocked to hear that after my kind of rant on the state of the colleges and universities. But this only applies to a few people and if you're in these very specific circumstances. And typically, I would say if you're a young person and you want to actually enjoy the experience of university or college, which can be an amazing life experience. And as I said earlier, if you're not going to go into huge debt, whether you have a windfall of money or your parents are willing to pay for your education, then actually going to study at a university or college could be very beneficial, but only if it is a college that teaches the fundamentals of art. Again, part of what used to be a classical art education, focusing on drawing, focusing on painting, mastering various techniques, composition, all of that type of thing. And if you're not in a hurry, again, if you're 21, 22 years old, you want to kind of enjoy life before starting out trying to make a career as an artist, then actually going to college or university might be the route for you. Just be aware that it's likely going to cost you in and around the neighborhood of $100,000. And you're going to spend 3 or 4 years before you're actually at the point where you're going to have even the chance to earn some money from your art. Again, just make sure that it's not one of these universities that focuses on postmodernism, but it's going to give you a solid grounding in the skills and the concepts necessary to create great art that people actually want to buy. If you're in the position where you have the ability to spend several $1,000s a year, but you don't want or are unable to do the whole university thing, then there's another really good viable option, and that is by attending in-person workshops from accomplished artists. There are a lot of very successful, accomplished artists out there who, much like myself, who feel that desire to give back and help aspiring artists on their journey. And many of them spend several weeks or months a year actually teaching. And there are actually a few meccas for these type of workshops, and anyone teaching at these places is going to be at a very high level. So that would be like the Art Students League in New York, or the Scottsdale Artist School in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I would recommend taking a variety of different workshops from different instructors and taking from them the various things that are their strengths. And then there is the final situation, which is actually who I've designed my art academy for. And that is where you don't have a ton of money that you are able or willing to spend on your art education. You also don't want to wait. You actually want to get as quickly as possible to the point where you can be earning some money from your art. Well, in that case, I would advise you to really look into online learning and online courses. The beauty of the online courses is they're much cheaper than the in-person courses. You don't have to travel to go take them, and you're not dependent on the instructor's schedule. You can take them at your own time, at your own pace, from the comfort of your own home. And so not only do I have a number of courses, but there are a number of brilliant painters and teachers out there who have their own online courses. That's kind of the least expensive and quickest way, I would say, to actually develop those skills. And then regardless of which of these avenues you take to actually work on your art, at a certain point, you're going to need to look at mastering the business side of being an artist. How do you actually go about making a living from your art? And that is something I can help you with. If you are still watching this video at the half-hour mark, I'm going to guess that what I've said resonates with you. You'd like to start earning from your art as soon as possible, and you don't want to spend a fortune before being able to do that. In my Unstoppable Artist course, I put together a bundle of courses that will reveal the strategies that I've used and that Emily used and that Brooke has used to actually create a decent living from the sale of our art, while at the same time giving you the tools that you need to master all of the skills and the concepts and work towards creating your own unique voice as an artist that's going to allow you to create a steady, reliable income from your art. And as I said, my goal was to make this available to any artist, so I made it as inexpensive as I possibly could. Now, all of these courses, if you were to buy them individually, would be over $1,000, and that's still an amazing deal. But right now, you can get the entire suite of courses for just $199. And you're going to be able to do that risk-free. I'm so certain that the value of these courses so far exceed what I'm charging. You can take the course for 30 days, and if at the end of that time you don't believe I've given you way more value than what you've paid, you can just email me and I'll gladly refund you your money. Now see if you can find a college or university art program that will offer that kind of a guarantee. And with that, I'm going to call this painting finished. And I'm also going to get serious here for just a couple minutes. If it's your dream to live the life of a successful professional artist, you really need to pay attention here. Because the one thing I can tell you is that there will come a day when you're going to be contemplating your demise, as I was. And the question is, are you going to be approaching that with a feeling of gratitude for the life that you lived? Or is it going to be with a feeling of regret? Regret for not only not having lived the life you were meant to live, but never even having stepped up to the plate to take a swing. Look, the next 2 years of your life are going to go by regardless of what you do in the next couple moments. You can just scroll on to the next video, and in 2 years, you're likely going to be in exactly the same situation, hoping and dreaming of a life as an artist. Or you can click on the link in the description below. You can learn all about my Unstoppable Artist program. And if you think it's a good fit for you, in 2 years, you could be on your way to or actually living your dream life as an artist. So if you would like to live a life like I have, like Emma is doing, like Emily is doing, and like Brooke is doing, I really encourage you. Click on the link in the description below. What do you say? Give me a chance to change your life.